Welcome to another Maamar we learned today in the Mizgeres of Project Melukat. These Maamar are learned l'schus, l'nishmas, our beloved Shiur, Cakiva Wagner. The Maamar we learned today is the Maamar Samach the Samach Rei Mahuvim. It was said Shabbos Parshas Tetzei Yud Gimel El Tavshin Mem Aleph. Yud Gimel El is the Friedrich wedding anniversary. The Rebbe edited this Maamar a few years later, Tavshin Mem Zayin, which was the 90th anniversary of the Friedrich Chasane. The Friedrich got married in Tafresh Nun Zayin. This is Tavshin Mem Zayin. The Maamar is miyusid. It's based on the Rebbe Rashab's famous hemshech of Samach to Samach Tafresh Nun Zayin, which was actually said by this chasna, by the Friedrich wedding. The Rebbe is going to make note of it. The central points discussed in the Maamar is, of course, the idea of simcha, Samach to Samach, simcha according to Chassidus and Avodas Hashem, Al Pi Kabbalah, what does it accomplish and how it's a vital aspect of a Yid's avodah to the Eibishter, how Avodas Hashem has to be with simcha, what it could accomplish, the idea of simcha, peretz kol hagdorim. When a person accesses this idea of joy, true joy from the essence of the soul, he's literally able to break through all boundaries, break through all of his natures, all of his habits. Murdik Geshmaka Itzis here in the Maamar, as well as the Rebbe ties it into the idea of a chasna and simchas nisuyin. And the Rebbe says Murdik how every single time any yid does any mitzvah, it's the Eibishter rejoicing in the simcha and the chasna of his own child. Right? We know every mitzvah is yichud kushabrichu shchinte. And every yid is a ben yochid by the Eibishter, like the Baal Shem Tov says, B'meila every mitzvah is the Eibishter rejoicing by his only son's wedding. Mamish, phenomenal ideas here. Also in the conclusion of the Maamar, that Rebbe talks about the avodah of Elul, the positive side of Elul. So let's get right in. Just going to make a Akdama here. The first three ACs are discussing the Yichudim, the unities Al Pi Kabbalah of Yichud Avo and Yichud Zun, which sound like very Kabbalistic ideas. So I did listen to Shiurim that are on the website from Rabbi Yossi Paltil, beautiful Shiurim. I would suggest anyone to listen to it. But he helped me understand how these are brought down into a lot more practical ideas. So give the credit where credit is due. And as Hashem, when we're going to learn the Maamar, I'm going to touch it in the way I learned it there. So let's get right in. So obviously Samach to Samach is one of the Sheva brachas. It's the sixth bracha. And it's a bracha that we're asking the Eibishter for the Chassan and Kalos. Let's see. Samach the Samach Rei Mahuvim. We're asking the Eibishter, bring simcha, bring joy, Rei Mahuvim to the friends, Rei Mahuvim, which are beloved, which love each other, they are in love. Just like you brought joy to your creation when it became in Gan Eden all the way back in the beginning. What does it refer to? This is referring to Adam and Chava. Back in the day, in the beginning of creation, there was no one there besides the Eibishter, and he brought tremendous joy to Adam and Chava by their chassan. And we're asking the Eibishter to bring that type of joy, tremendous joy, to the chassan and kala as well. It's explained in the Maamar. That was said by the Friedrich wedding, obviously by the Rebbe Rashab. On Erev Shabbos Kodesh Gimel El Tafshin Zayin. Pi Kabbalah, what is Reim Ha'ahuvim? He B'chinas Chochmu Bina Shnikar Teinei L'Misparshin. It refers to a yichud of Chochma and Bina, the two intellectual faculties. And Al Pi Kabbalah, they're called Reim, they're called friends, L'Misparshin, they're never separate. We're requesting the Eibishter, we're asking the Eibishter to bring joy into this yichud of Chacham Bina. The simple question you have to understand is that Bina is the place of joy. David says until him, the mother of the children is rejoiced. What is the mother? That is Bina. Bina gives birth to the children, which in the context here is referring to the midas, the emotions. Says you see it literally when you're able to properly rationalize something and truly wrap your mind around the intellectual concept, it brings tremendous joy. Bina already has simcha. This is the place of joy. So the question is, why are we asking the Eibishter to bring joy into a place of joy? There's already joy there. And also in Chochma, which there is no simcha Chochma. How come? Simcha comes from revelation. Like the Rebbe Rashab, who asks the same questions, and the Samach explains by Ruchel there how Simcha overflows and its expression and it's revealed in everything, and a person jumps, right? So that's the idea of Simcha. It's only an expression or revelation. Chochma is beyond, it transcends revelation. It's still a nekuda, it's still just a lightning bolt, like he says it here. It's a flash, it's original. So it's higher than revelation, it's higher than joy. Nevertheless, ultimately in Chochma we have something even higher than joy, and that's Tainug. The Yerushalmi says how Ramavo found a new shtickle Torah, a new Tesefta, a new Medrash, his face shined. Tzivas upon Megillah Oinig, it's explained that the ray of the face is from the expression, the revelation of pleasure that exists within a person. V'yidua da'oinig al-mal misimcha, no pleasure is even greater than joy. Why are we asking the Eibusha to bring joy into Rei Mahuvim, into the friends, our love, which we explained there first to Chacham and Bina? There's already joy in Bina. And in Chacham you have something even greater than joy. Why do I have to bring Simcha to Chacham and Bina? There's already joy in Bina, and there's already Tainug, which is greater than joy in Chacham. Second question, when we talk about the Sheva Brachas, we're referring to the Chasen Kala. It's known the Chasen Kala is the Yichud of Zah and Nukva, which is Midos and Malchus. So what is indeed the connection between, we just explained according to the word Reim typically means Chacham Bina, and here we're referring to the Chasen Kala. The Chasen Kala is the lower unity, the unity of Zah and Malchus. So what do we mean by Pashtus? So you have a yichud of Chacham and Bina, which is a more of a spiritual connection. You have a Rav and a Talmud. When I teach you something, there's obviously we bond over something intellectual, over music, over ideas. That's a spiritual unity, which is the yichud of Chacham and Bina, which is a higher type of unity. And then there's the yichud zun, which is a lower type of unity, which is a physical bond, which also eventually produces and creates new life and creates neshamas. It's explained that from the yichud of Avah, of Avaim, that's where neshamas, that's where malachim come from, and the yichud zun, that's where neshamas come from. Eventually, that's where the new olam, new creation, new life comes from. So the question very simply here is, when we talk about a chasen kala, we're talking about the lower but deeper unity, the yichud of zun and zah and nukva, of Midas and Malchus, which literally can produce new life. Why then are we saying Samach Reim, which Reim we said refers to Chacham Bina, the higher, more spiritual type of unity? What's going on over here? So the Rebbe says nowadays, really, when we say Samach to Samach Reim Ahuvim, we're not necessarily only talking about a spiritual unity. There's hidden in here something more. Shleimar, humans that Kasher Shnei Perushim Machmashkatz B'Sefer Emes Yaakov is brought in a Sefer Kabbalah called Emes Yaakov. Huva b'Maamar now which Rebbe Shabbat brings. Da'ahuvim b'Germatria doidim v'heim zavin nuk v'kidosh reim chacham bina v'doidim zun. This is the trick. Ahuvim is the Gematria of doidim. Now we know that doidim is yichud zun. It is zah nukva. Like we say ani l'doidim v'dili. Doidim is husband and wife. Doidim is chasen kala. You have ahuvim, which is chacham bina. Doidim is zah nukva. Kumtois. It doesn't say just reim. It says reim ha'ahuvim, and ahuvim is Gematria zun. So we see already in the reim ahuvim, there's already alluded the concept of a chasen kala as well. So why does it say reim ahuvim together? Tevz ahuvim behemshech v'torah shel reim shekoy kanal. Achacham bina here, ahuvim is only a description. It's an extension to the original concept of reim. What's going on over here? Shalvar b'shnei ifanim. So Rebbe says you can explain it to ifanim. Aleph al pi yidua ba'ifin leidus hamidas zun me'amoichi chacham bina. How indeed our midas, our emotions developed and created, how are they born from the mind, the intellect? They don't appear from nowhere. There was, in its most original, most vague form, you have the concept of midas already in the mind, so to speak. The lowest part of the mind is already midas, and eventually it develops and becomes an independent entity. If that's the case, there is that potential form of midos where they're still in the mind. If that's the case, so we're talking about the mind. What part of the mind? The ahuvim part of the mind. The midos, meaning the lowest part of the mind. In other words, within moichin, if you look closely, there is already the first potential to the concept of midos. On the other hand, if you'll say ahuvim regularly, that's that would be independent midas ahuvim doidim, because ahuvim again is the numerical value of doidim, which is on nukva. That's the case. That says like a shmach gedank. That's also understood why it's only a numerical value to gematria. Ahuvim begematria doidim. How come? It doesn't say samach the samach reim doidim, because reim and doidim are two different things. We're saying reim ahuvim, which is a gematria doidim. How come? If you want to get from that higher yichud to the lower yichud, from the unity of chacham bina to eventually then develop into midos, it's a huge development. It's a lot of levels. Through many levels of constructions, many levels of evolution. That ahuvim is only gematria doidim. Gematria, it's explained this is where two things are not openly, not revealed sense, and not related, but if you dig very deep, you're able to find some sort of correlation, because the midos, the way they're in the moichin, are so vague, they're in such a potential state, they're still part of moichin, that it's, for it to eventually become its own independent entity, takes a lot of steps, and therefore it's only a gematria. That's one way how you explain Re'im Ahuvim. There is a second concept. Ultimately, no midos. Emotions are born. They're children of the mind. We know Chochma Bina is father, mother. Zun is ben bas, son, daughter. This is the Kabbalah. Sha'av Eim Yutke Chochma Bina ben bas in Vavke Zun. Explain the Kabbalah. Father and mother. That's Yutke, the first half of Shem Havaya, which is the mind, intellect. Ben bas in Vavke, son and daughter. That is the second half of Shem Havaya, which is Vavke, which is Zah and Nukhu. You know, the Vav is the 6 midos. The Hey is Malchus. So ultimately, because they are children of the parents, they will always be similar to the parents. Even later, when midos develop into independent entity, they will always be able to be traced back. They will always resemble the moichin. Why? Very simple. A father inherits certain things to his child, genes, v'chulu. To the extent when it comes to inheriting things, the child is able to stand in the place of his father. So there's obviously a link. There's a correlation here where the son could always be traced back to the father. The same would be true when it comes to the daughter. If she's going to inherit, if there's no son. And if you look closely in detail, the father is the son, right? The son is in the place of the father, the daughter is in the place of the mother, like the pasuk says, Ki'ima kibita, like mother, like daughter. What's now pshat re'im ahuvim? Apizir shleimar shegam lakshir shizgalu. Even after they're developed, nikreim shem re'im ahuvim. I can still call these ahuvim, these doidim, these midos re'im. I can still trace them back to the parents, to the moichin kanal re'im ahuvim bashut kol chas v'kala zvun shebeguli. Because again, when we're saying this bracha, we're talking referring to the chas and kala. We're primarily talking about the yichud of zun. Elamai re'im ahuvim means they could be traced back. They're still similar. There's a resemblance of the greater type of yichud, because even after they're developed, they are still similar to their original state, to their parents who gave birth to them, to Chacham Bina. So what do we say? When we say Re'im Ahuvim, we're not just talking about the deeper, more spiritual type of yichud of Chacham Bina. We are actually referring to the Chas and Kala Take. Elamai in Tuefanim, either the Chas and Kala or the yichud zun, the way it's still musher, the way it's still in its most potential form in the mind, or we're actually talking about the chas and kala, the yichud zun, but they resemble, they could be traced back to chachma bina, to the higher yichud of b'meila. I call it re'im ahuvim. Yesh lo yisif. Now that was a beautiful beer in Kabbalah and different reasons why I could call it re'im ahuvim, but what's the connection to Samach to Samach? So everybody's going to say here, the Rebbe says connection to Pirushim. The Pirusha Ikri is Re'im, it's Chacham Bina, Teir Le'Misparshik, Vorbaruch Maamar. El Sheyesh is Eid Pirusha Kol Gamal Zun, Elamai. If you look closely, I can give another explanation, which is actually referring to the Chas and Kala to Zun. Right, and we explained here, because after they're developed, right, the second Pirush, after they're developed, they could still be traced back. This relates to the bigger picture of bringing joy. What's the pshat here? Why do I need to bring joy into Re'im Ha'ahuvim, in these two biurim? Why indeed I'm asking the Eibishter to bring joy into Chacham Bina? The first question we asked, there's already joy in Bina, there's already pleasure in Chachma. Why am I bringing Simcha into Chacham Bina? And the answer is, we're answering the first question now. Like we'll explain, the Rebbe says, we'll explain obviously at length. We didn't say anything yet. But the beer, the Kudas beer is, we're bringing a joy which is much greater than the natural joy that already exists in Chachma Bina. Why indeed do I need to bring this greater joy? What's wrong with the joy of the Chas and Kala right now? The joy of Ava. They said, because I want to eventually develop into the lower yichud, the yichud of Zun. So the Rebbe is saying here, I'm already going to get here, where at the time of the Chasner, there's still Re'im Ahuvim. There's still, so to speak, a spiritual unity. They're still exchanging only ideas. But the Beracha, we're saying, Samach to Samach, that eventually we're going to bring such a great simcha into this couple, into the Chas and Kala, that it should come down from the spiritual unity, it should come down to physical unity, to Yichud Zun, which will create new life and create a family and create banim b'nei banim b'eskim b'teira mitzvah. So that's the nekuda here, where it's explained where, right, in other words, the Chas and Kala right now only have a spiritual unity, and we're diving to the Eibishter, bring that essential simcha, which will bring it to the next level, bring it to the Yichud Zun, to the physical Yichud. So let's see, weiter, now that I was going to teach and tell Hashem, what's Hakapshat? In other words, We said here there's two types of joy. We said there's the natural joy that already exists in Chacham Bina, but I want to bring a greater type of joy. So what's pshat? Why? We know serving the Eibush has to be with joy. It is a vibe of simcha. Pasuk says until you have to serve the Eibush with joy. Uksiv, the pasuk says, the reason why all the klolis, all the curses, terrible punishments are coming to a Yid is because you don't serve the Eibush with joy. And we know what the simple meaning is. The Eibush is telling us, He's going to give us all these tzaddis because we didn't serve the Eibishter Miroiv Koil when we were still comfortable in Eretz Yisrael. But the Rebbe here brings the Pirush HaYadua from the Arizal much more than that. No, the lack of joy is what brings all the clause. In other words, joy is an integral part of Avodas Hashem. Like explained in the Chassidus, the idea of Avodas Hashem is bringing the shefa, bringing the flow of the Eibishter to the world. When a person has joy, that's when all the channels are open, and you're able to really express the Eibishter of the world. Joy is an integral part of Avodas Hashem. Ultimately, there's many, many levels in joy. But first, the Rebbe is going to say, where do we see that simcha has to be in every aspect of life? Why not only when I'm serving Hashem? But the Rebbe says, no. You need to serve the Eibishter in every aspect, in every idea. You need to, everything you do has to be for the Eibishter. But more than that, you have to find the Eibishter literally in everything you do. Like this explains the two levels. To the extent serving the Eibishter is literally the purpose of your creation, to the extent I was not created only that I should be able to serve the Eibishter. Every moment of my life I am in an active position of service. If I need to serve the Eibishter with joy, in every moment of life I'm serving the Eibishter, so I need to be joyous every moment of life. There are many levels in joy. You don't have to be at the top level of joy every moment. The Rebbe goes through it step by step. Obviously, we have places which are associated to joy. You have a home which is specially built for a wedding. When you walk into that home, you get a certain vibe of joy, right? When you walk into, let's say, a funeral home, you're obviously going to get a very different feeling. So there's certain physical locations that bring along with them that feeling of joy. And so too, obviously, when it comes to time, like the Rebbe is going to point out, you have many levels. You have special days which are meant for joy, special days of joy, times of joy. Within those days, there are many levels. In addition to Sukkah being a regular Yom Tif, it's a time of joy. So within the joy, this is a special joy. Within Sukkot itself, Razal teaches us the nights of Simcha, the nights of Sukkot. When they would draw the water, there was a tremendous celebration, and a person who never saw that celebration has literally never experienced joy in his life. Now that Rebbe gives a little of a Kabbalistic twist to it, that they would dance with the avukes, the torches of light. We know the avukas shel is wisdom, clarity, is light. In Harikud, what does it mean to dance with the avukis, with the torches? It means to bring down that light into contemplation, into your mind, into your life. It says within that joy of Simchas B'Shev, there are many levels. Who experiences joy? Only the great sages among the Jewish people. Everyone else would just observe on the sidelines, because it's a simcha that's being experienced. So every person experiences it on his level. The Rebbe takes it to the next level. The simcha of Akaf, when we dance with the Torah, it's even greater than simcha like it's explained in Likkutei Torah, the famous beer where the more something has to be instructed, the less the joy is. So you have the mitzvah of joy of Yom Tiv, and then you have the Nisuch HaMayim, which is only a Lacham Sinai, and then you have the idea of HaKavod, which is only a minig, because the minig, the joy is the greatest, highest level of joy. That's Simchas Torah. That to the extent it literally took on the name of the day. We know a name in Torah shows on the true identity, the chayis, the life of this concept. Simchas Torah, and the name is Simchas Torah. The whole day is infused with joy. It's the greatest, highest level of joy within the realm of Yom Tovim. He calls them Muva and So what comes out are many levels of joy. But ultimately they can be split l'shtei dargis, two pchines, two categories. You have a certain joy which is formulated from a specific concept, is derived from a specific idea. For example, I come up with a certain contemplation, a certain recognition, I'm able to wrap my mind around a concept that brings me a tremendous joy, or I solve the problem, or I'm hearing a beautiful music. There are many joys that come from things around me. Simcha zui, because ultimately that simcha is in the more revealed senses of the person. B'meila, it's limited. It's limited to what? To what you're experiencing, to what you're seeing, to what you accomplished. Simcha atzmis. Then there's a second type of joy, which is called the essential joy that comes from within. Shehi v'ikra b'etzem hanefesh. Where is it stationed in the essence of the person's soul? Shalmal v'gadak bala, which is completely higher than any limitation. So there's joy that comes from outside, and the joy that comes from within. It comes from nothing and no one and nowhere but yourself, your own essence. You're able to really be joyous with yourself. And the Rebbe says that simcha is a unlimited simcha because it's not limited to any circumstance, it's not limited to what gave you that joy, but it's just you being joyous. Fine. So we split joy into two categories. There's a joy that's murkav, a joy which has a certain seer, a certain formation, has a specific personality, a specific type. And then there's a joy which transcends all that. It's essential. It's just the neshama of the yid. Your essence is being revealed. Now the Rebbe says, why is that negiyah? What does it matter, these two concepts? The Rebbe says in the next ois, because when you want to say simcha can break through boundaries, specifically, we're talking about the joy which comes from the essence. Why? Because the essence transcends all boundaries. Now let's see. You can understand this concept based on what's explained in the Maamar that Rebbe Shab Sheteva Simcha Lifers Geder. The nature of joy is to break boundaries. What are we talking primarily? Every confinement and every limitation within a person's soul. Within that, he talks about two different types. There's something called a habit, where I do something again and again, and that becomes my second nature. Even though they become your nature, you're accustomed to it. But ultimately, it's, what is the second type of limitation, the second type of confinement? Simcha is able to break through even those natures that you were born with. They are innate within your personality. The Aim created with certain limitations. And the vart that Rebbe Rashab is saying here is that Simcha is even able to recreate a person, completely break through even those boundaries that a person is born into. To the extent that Simcha is able to completely change it from extreme to extreme. In other words, Simcha doesn't just create that whatever I'm experiencing either way, whatever my talents are, whatever my, so to speak, general direction is, it's going to be on steroids. It's going to be in a much greater oifin. No, that's not pshat. It's able to completely change your nature from extreme to extreme. Simcha, when you experience a moment of joy, even a person who is naturally inclined to one direction to be kind is able to completely become a new person and be strict or the opposite. It's going to bring an example. A person who is naturally very primitive, he's very limited, he's a miser, he's not able to share. In the base of simcha, when a person is truly joy, Samach, tremendous joy, at that moment he's able to completely transform that nature and become a generous person who splurges and shares. Literally like a person who that is his original nature. To the extent you're able to even be kind with an enemy. At that moment of joy, you transcend everything. You transcend your own limitations. You even transcend the limitations of who you love and who you don't. And the Rebbe says it can even be a soina, which al pi Torah, there's a limit between you and him. It's able to break through that boundary as well. Now the simcha here, which typically we talk about, is the simcha of chasas m'nei yechideh, where a person is able to share at that moment. The Rebbe says, let's understand what's going on here. Even in the first way, where it's not innate, it's just a habit, it's just a teva sheni sarich bir. Because ultimately when a person is accustomed to something that becomes your nature, even though technically you'll say it's only a second nature, it's not literally who I am. A person needs a lot of time, a lot of effort to be able to slowly change and get out of bad habits. And we know how difficult it is to get out of bad habits. How is it possible in this one moment of joy, a person can completely transform himself? If a person is accustomed to doing something, you need a long process of development to eventually break out of it. Last time, Beis Rebbe says that question is even in the first way. In the first Simcha Peres Geder, the Gdorim that you put upon yourself. But especially, this would be a Kal V'chomer. When talking about the second Eif of Simcha V'sach Lahavin, how can Simcha break through the boundaries that a person was born into? This is your nature. To the extent it can literally change the person's nature from extreme to extreme. So what's the answer? How does it work? Before Maamar Shamak, the Rebbe Rashab explains there, the Masha Simcha Peretzes Geder, Afilu Beif and Aleph. This the joy has the ability to break through boundaries, even in the first explanation, the first Eifin. Especially the second way, specifically when joy comes from the person's essence, only from you, not from any joy that comes from around you. Like we explained, it's greater than any revealed sense, revealed faculties like contemplation or emotion. It's higher than all that. How come? What's the methodology here? Your essence transcends all limitations because it's connected to the Eibish's essence. So when you experience joy from the essence of your soul, that is greater, higher than the eventual tools that you develop, like your arms, your head, right? Also your spiritual tools, like your mind, your heart. These are all tools that are developed from the essence. But if you go to a place which is deeper than those tools, deeper than those expressions, so you're able to, from within, completely transform and completely recreate a person, which is a murdic concept here that the Rebbe Rashab talks about, but that's the Nikuda here where you need an essential type of joy that comes from the deepest place, and you're able to, from within, reconstruct the entire person. That's the explanation here. We're davening to the Eibishter and asking the Eibishter to give Simcha to Chacham Bina. Give Simcha to the Chasam and Kala, which seemingly they're already joyous. Chacham Bina is already joyous. What's the essential joy over here? What are we trying to bring in? Something that they don't have yet. Vav. V'zeu Samach to Samach Reim Ahuvim Shetzarich Lahamshich Hasimcha Chacham Bina. You need to bring the joy into the mind, Chacham Bina. We already asked. The place of joy is Bina. Chacham has something even greater than Simcha. That joy in Bina, that pleasure in Chacham. It's similar to the joy that comes from the revealed faculties of the person, like comes from something outside of you, like music, like contemplation. All these things bring you joy, but ultimately the joy is very limited to what you're experiencing. Therefore, it's limited, it's confined. You're going to ask me ultimately, when you talk about Chachma, Chachma really is essence. Chachma really does reach a place which is higher than confinements. And the simple explanation is, right, we say Pnimis Abba, Pnimis Atik, the essence of Chochmah really reaches the essence of the Keser. The question becomes basically, where does that recreative energy, where does that revelation come from, right? It's not you. It's something that's being revealed from above, something that's even higher than Chochmah. Chochmah is the highest thing. So what is that? It's Keser. So in other words, you have within Abba, within Chochmah, you have something that's higher than Chochmah, you have the essence. So why are we saying you have to bring that in? We're not just talking about Chochmah has a link to Keser, but even greater than Keser. The first Shiur, the first root of Keser, which is the Primus Atzis Terin Seif. In other words, Chochmah is a place, like the other Rebbe says in Tanya, and it's brought in the Hagois from the Magid, that when you talk about Chochmah, Chochmah is really a vessel for things that are way beyond Chochmah. When a person has that bittul of Chochmah, Chochmah Ayin Tematze is making himself accessible to what's above himself, to the first and highest essence that's above himself, and that's the Eibish's essence. So what's wrong with Chochmah Bina? What's wrong with that oining? That is all connected to the internal Yichud of Avo. In other words, Chochmah Bina, the way they are naturally, it's a more external connection. When we say today, we say Chochmah Bina are always happy, always united, that is externally, in external sense, they're always happy, they're always together. But the essential unity connected to the essence of Chochmah, which is connected to the essence of Keser, which is even greater than that, right? Connected to the essence of Primus, of Atzis, and Soif, that doesn't happen automatically. That needs to be created. And that's actually the simcha that we're talking about. That yichud is not constant. It happens from time to time. And that indeed is the bracha. Samach to Samach Reim Ahuvim. We're asking the Eibishter to bring joy into these friends that are so joyful already. We're asking that within Chacham Bina, which are already joyous, but in a very limited way, in a primitive way, we're asking to bring the essence of Chochmah, right? The essence of the Eibusher, which completely transcends any limitation. Breaks through all boundaries. When you have the essential type of yichud, which only happens sometimes, all of a sudden, the yichud Pnimi Chochmah Bina can become as well a yichud Tmidi that could also be a constant yichud. What is the purpose of that? Now, why do I need to bring the essence of Chochmah Bina, right? Which is Keser, which is the Eibusher's essence. Why do I need to bring something from so much greater? What's wrong with the yichud of Chochmah Bina that they have all the time? What's wrong with that simcha of Terei Lemisparshin? So the answer is in the next paragraph. The purpose, the trajectory. What's our goal here? Why I want to connect that yichud pnimi. I want to bring the essential type of simcha into the Chochmah Bina, which they don't have on their own. Because I wanted to develop it to the next level, to the lower yichud, the yichud gufni of Zun Shezewa Iker, because ultimately that is the Iker, which is really the topic of the end of the Hemshich of the Rebbe Rashab. Let's explain that length. The Maamar the Rebbe Rashab, Yichud Zun and Dafka Amshachas Etzem. In the lower Yichud, the Yichud of Yichud Gufni, the Yichud of Zal Malchus, that is where you have the Amshachas Etzem. That's where the essence is revealed. Shalochin, the Yichud Zun Dafka and Nasi Savas Chadosha. Therefore, from there is where you have birth. You create a new neshama. Latest on neshama is Al-Kadeshi Yichud Zun. Elamai, you can't have that physical unity that creates neshamis. You have to have Tarach L'Ischila. You need to preface that with a Yichud Pnimi Chochmah Bina first. You have to have Chochmah Bina, not just spiritual connection, like intellectual connection, but it has to be a much deeper, essential connection that comes into that Yichud Pnimi. That's what we're asking the Eibusher. That's the 3 steps over here. We're asking the Eibusher. We have Re'emahum here. We have a couple of Chassan Kala which seem to be very joyous. They seem to be very happy. And as of now, they're very intellectually connected and they share ideas and they share concepts, right? That's the Simcha of a Chassan Kala. And we're asking the Eibusher, we want to bring a much greater type of Simcha. Samach to Samach. Bring this essential type of Simcha. Why? Because I want the Reim should now become Ahuvim. And Ahuvim are Gematia Doidim. I want that from the Reim, from the spiritual connection between the two, should become a physical connection, which is lower, but much deeper, because it brings out the essence, it can bring complete new birth. And the Rebbe is going to explain in the next Ois, that's why this whole bracha is so connected to a wedding, because that's Amshachas Ha'etzem, that idea, the ability to give birth, the idea of Ein Soif Mamish, which is expressed within the concept of bringing new life into the world, is connected to Nisuin. In other words, by the wedding you don't see it, but that's ultimately the purpose. That's why Ahuvim's Gematia Doidim, we're asking the Eibusher that this Chassan Kala should eventually bring it to the next step and build a home among Klal Yisrael. So let's see, Zayin. Now we understand why this is related specifically to the Simcha of a Chassan. Only the Eibusher's essence can create the world, which is something that came from nothing. Why? Any other level of Elokus, not the Eibusher's essence. In other words, you have Atzilus, you have Breim, all the spiritual realms, all the spiritual worlds. Ultimately, they are not self-sufficient. Every one of them is dependent on the earlier level. Something which is dependent cannot create something which is independent. Because if I'm dependent, I can only create dependence. I can't give you something I don't have myself. I can't give you something that I don't have on my own. How did the Eibusher create a world which seems, which feels to be independent, which feels like there is no creator? Therefore, by the way, we call it Yesh Mi'ayin. You have a Yeshus that literally can never be traced back to the Ayin, can never be traced back to the source of Elokus that created it. How can you create such an independent world? Not actually independent, but a world that perceives itself as independent. It's only through Rak B'Koyach Atzmus, only the Eibusher's essence, the first Nikuda of Elokus, which indeed is independent, is self-sufficient, did not come from anywhere. There's no step that precedes it, that comes before it. In other words, only the Eibusher's essence, which is truly independent, could create a world which perceives itself to be independent, because the question becomes, where did that feeling come from? No other level in Elokus feels independent. Every level understands it comes from somewhere. How do you create a world that feels independent? Only because it comes from a place which is truly independent. Kumdois that the Gashmis of our world, the Bria, actually expresses the greatest essence of Hashem. Ultimately, when did this all happen? When did the Eibusher create the world? The Eibusher created the world originally. Why did the Eibusher decide to reveal his essence and create this world, which took tremendous koyach, right? To create Yesh Mi'ayin, it was the first time this was happening. It's because the Eibusher's Chafetz Chesed decided to be kind, decided to be nice, decided to create a world. But now, after Jewish people were given this mandate and Matan Torah to serve the Eibush, says now if you want the Eibush to continue infusing the world with Chayis, the Eibush created the world once because he was kind. You want the Eibush to continuously create the world, continuously be involved in creation. That's now through Avodah Torah mitzvahs. Now it needs to be earned. It doesn't come for free. Which mitzvah specifically brings the Eibush's essence, brings our world into existence through the Eibush's essence. Specifically, the mitzvahs which are related to this concept of bligul, of true infinity. This is like the mitzvah of having children. The fact that a person can give birth to a child, who can eventually give birth to a child, this endless cycle, and every one of them can have birth to endless people. In other words, there's a koyach here of Ein Soif. The cycle never gets weaker, which is the idea of Ein Soif. So when a Yid does a mitzvah, which clearly expresses the idea of Ein Soif, the idea of Bria, that is where, right? Giving birth is similar, like the concept of creating something from nothing. That is what awakens, so to speak, the Eibishter's essence, the Eibishter's atzmos to continuously create and interact with our world. Because today, again, we have to earn it through doing any mitzvah, but specifically the mitzvahs that bring out this Gilui Koyach Atzmos. And this all ties back into the bracha. We're asking the Eibishter, bring joy to the Nei Mahuvim, bring joy to the Chas and Kala, the two friends that are in love. Because ultimately, I don't want it to just stay by Reim. I don't want it to stay by two spiritual connected people. I want there should be eventually a birth. They should multiply and they should conquer the world, settle the entire universe. Therefore, we're asking at this point, at the Chasanet, should bring an essential type of joy. I want to bring the essence of the Eibishter into this couple to eventually bring their joy into a much deeper, greater type of unity, the unity of Zun, which will create new life. That's also related to the fact that we connected all to Adam Arishain. How come? Why did the Eibishter rejoice with Adam Arishain all the way back there in Gan Eden? The Eibishter was kind. He decided this is what he wants to do. We're asking now the same hamshacha, the same joy, the same type of revelation that you revealed yourself to Adam Arishain for free. We're asking now through the mitzvah that this chas and kala are going to do together, we are earning, so to speak, that hamshacha that you gave for free. Now it should be done through our avodah of Torah mitzvahs. Now that we explained how literal a wedding, the Rebbe is going to move on to say how be'emes there was a chasana between Yidden and the Eibishter, which is the same idea. It's just like by the original wedding between us and the Eibishter Matan Torah, there was this tremendous type of joy. Again, the joy that we're asking the Eibishter, the Simcha Atzmis, that we're asking the Eibishter to bring to this Chas and Kala, happened at the time Matan Torah. It's explained in the Maamar. What's the essential joy? That's the joy of a wedding. And by the way, you could ask, a wedding seems like an murka, right? It seems like my joy is coming from something, but it's not true. Because a joy that comes from our own child's wedding, that's essential. That comes from the essence of the person, right? This is a person which is like me, which is outside of me, and now he's getting married on his own. It's not a joy that comes from outside of you. It's really who you are, because this is your son. Ultimately, Matan Torah was through our avodah. Our avodah brought Amshachas Atzmus. When we talk about the wedding, we're talking about Yom Kippur, when there was a second luchos that the Jewish people had to earn through their avodah. Right? You have the first luchos for Jewish people like tzaddikim. The Eibishter just gave them the gift. Then we had the sin, and then we had to work through our issues. And then when we were again worthy to receive those luchos, we're Baalei Tshuva, it was through the idea of avodah. It's just like our weddings today, it comes through our avodah Torah mitzvahs. The wedding that we had with the Eibishter Matan Torah was also the idea of avodah. Rebbe says here, that became called mitzvah. So too, every single mitzvah a Yid does. Every time you do avodah, that they call mitzvah. It says in Kabbalah, every single mitzvah needs the intent of yichud kuchabrichu shchinte. What's yichud kuchabrichu shchinte? Kuchabrichu is midos, is zah. Shchinte is malchus. That's the yichud of a chas and kal, the yichud of marriage. Every time I do a mitzvah, I am connecting to the Eibishter with that bond, that essential, that yichud gufni. The fact that I happen to only say it once by davening is because it is a pu'ul and mshechas for every single mitzvah. Kabbalah says every single mitzvah is a wedding, is a unity with the Eibishter. This yichud of Kodesh Baruch Hu Shechinte of Zal Malchus Kumtois Mikevon Shekol Echad Yisrael L'Bereichit Shogad Baruch Hu. This every single yid is the Eibishter's only son. Kedei Zal Bashem they do like the Bashem to say known. Kisib in B'chor Yisrael it says the Yidin are the Eibishter's Ben B'chor, the Eibishter's only son Lashon Yochid. It says it in single plural. It doesn't say the Jewish people are my children. It says the Jewish people are my son. As well as the terminology Abishur uses when revealing himself to us by Matan Torah is I am the Abishur, your Abishur, in literal plural term, a singular term, Lashon Yochid. Every is ben Yochid. Every yid who does a mitzvah, the simcha and shamayim of that yid is the simcha of the Eibishter by the wedding of his own son, his only son. The simcha to B'chas Chagdarm, and that simcha, like we explained, is the simcha atzmi, it's the essential simcha. That simcha has the ability to break through all boundaries. Every time he does a mitzvah, the Eibishter can break for him through all boundaries, any limitations, anything was stood in the way of his success and his happiness and his brachas. Everything breaks through when he does a mitzvah, and the Eibishter is in that state of joy. Let's conclude his test. The Rebbe talks about the idea of Chedesh El. This Maamar is Yud Gimel El. Befrat b'Chedesh El, which Chedesh El is that month where we feel that connection to Eibishter. Shamel Nimtz of Sadim Kolak, we saw the Eibishter is in the field with every Yid. Umekabel Kolak V'Echad the same point of view of his Eibishter accepts and takes upon every single person with a smiley face. Marlon Panim Shechit shows a laughing face, a revealed face. Vel Rosh Tevis Hanel Deidli, and El is actually the Rosh Tevis of I am. For my beloved one, my beloved is for me. Again, we explain doidim mizah nukva, and the Rebbe says here, afilu doidim shkoy al zun shedvung merak leprakim. We know doidim, a husband and wife, their unity is not constant. It has to be done. It's an active relationship. Ultimately, hine b'chedesh el misach tev achas. What happens in El? Ani ledoidim v'doidim li become one word. Kum tois the yichud of zun, which isn't constant. We said today lemisparshin chochma and bina, the spiritual relationship that always exists. The physical relationship of Zah Nukva, that's not constant. It has to be actually done. In the month of Elul, that's constant. Anil Deidili becomes one word. Does that move on? In addition to, throughout the entire year, anytime he does a mitzvah, this is a wedding with the Eibishter. It's in a much greater ifin. Now that Rebbe says, this Maamar said in Shabbos Parshas Teitzei, that Rebbe says specifically in the Shabbosim of Elul. How come? Ultimately, there's another side to Elul, and that is the more strict side of Elul. The more, not depressing, but the more serious part of Elul. It says a person is going to blow a shofar in the city and people are going to tremble. In other words, it's the avodah of knowing that the Rosh Hashanah is coming. We need to shape up. There's also the idea of fear. There's also the idea of tremble. Ultimately, when do we blow shofar? During the week. No one blows shofar on Shabbos. The yira, the charada, the second side of Elul, the more fearful side of Elul doesn't exist. First of all, Shabbos you don't blow shofar, and also it says ein etzavah. There's no sadness on Shabbos. So what is left? If you don't have the yira, you only have the anu l'deidi, you only have the love of El. Which is the joy of the wedding, of the marriage, of the unity between a yid and the Eibishter. Move on. Anytime a yid adds in the realm of Torah mitzvahs, specifically in the month of El, this breaks through all boundaries. Because again, every mitzvah is the Eibishter celebrating, breaking through all boundaries. The greatest boundaries we have is the limitations of golus, of exile. Every time you do a mitzvah, that's liberation. That's the opposite of golus. This hastens the arrival of the ultimate redemption. Where we say regarding Geula, Bayoimahu, Yeh, Kabbalah explains this Beis Pamim Yud-Kei. What's Pshat? Hanushagam Vavke, Yikamay Yud-Kei. Kamoish Yud-Kei is Vayatadir, Kamoish Yud-Kei is Vayatadir. We said there's a difference between Yichud Chacham Bina, which is constant. The Yichud Zun Vavke is only when it's actively implemented, it doesn't happen all the time. When Mashiach comes, Bayemu Yeh is Yud-Kei, just like the Yud-Kei, the Chachma, the intellect, the spiritual unity is constant. The physical unity will also be constant. The lower unity, the Zah and Nukva, will also be constant. The Gula Asida, which will be with the ultimate redemption, that will be the marriage. We know from Matan Torah till today we are engaged, so to speak. We are a chas and kal of the Eibishter. When Mashiach comes, we will become husband and wife, maybe spending our time. So what's in Nekuda our Maamar? Murder Geschmack. The Rebbe begins with the two shilas of why am I bringing simcha to chassan kala? Why am I bringing simcha to chacham bina? There's already joy in chacham bina. There's already joy in bina. There's already pleasure in chachma. The second question was, are we dealing with chacham bina here? Are we dealing with chassan kala, which is a nukfa? How do you make sense of the whole thing? And the Rebbe tells us how you're right. There is already joy in reim. There's already joy in spiritual unity in chacham bina. But the purpose of it all is to bring a much greater type of joy, a essential type of joy, a joy which comes from the essence. That joy can break through all boundaries. And the purpose of this joy is that eventually from the reim should become ahuvim, which is gematria doidim. From the reim, the spiritual unity, there should come the lower unity, the physical unity, which is much deeper, which creates new life, creates neshamis, which is the expression of ein soif, of atzmus. And in the context of Avodas Hashem, there's the idea where obviously every mitzvah we do is bringing the Eibusher's essence. Today we have to earn that the Eibusher should constantly recreate our world. Every time there's a mitzvah, there's a yichud kush b'ruch shrinti, there's a wedding here where the Eibusher is so Samach. The Eibusher rejoices and celebrates with his own son's wedding. It breaks through all boundaries. And that is Hashem Yisbarach should be the greatest boundary of all, the boundary of Golus. May it be speedily in our time. Geula mitzvah shlema. Each have a wonderful day.